I was standing in the bathroom on my wedding night, still wearing my white dress. The flowers woven into my hair were already beginning to wilt, and my makeup had faded, around the edges after hours of smiling, for photos and pretending everything felt perfect. But none of that was what made it hard to breathe. It was the toothbrushes sitting side by side on the marble counter. Mine and his. Two ordinary little things that suddenly felt like prison bars. Because I had just married the man I believed was perfect. Liam Carter was kind, successful, patient, thoughtful, the kind of man every woman dreams about and every mother prays their daughter finds, the kind of man people describe with one dangerous sentence, "He's too good to be true." And that was exactly the problem. Outside the bathroom door, I could hear him speaking quietly with his sister, Chloe Carter. She should have left the wedding an hour ago, but earlier that night she grabbed my wrist in the hallway when Liam walked away to greet guests. Her fingers were freezing cold and her face looked terrified. Fear, guilt, panic, all mixed together like she had been carrying something unbearable for years. "I've wanted to tell you for months," she whispered. "But you looked so happy. And now that you signed the papers, you deserve to know." At first I thought she meant some family secret. Maybe Liam had cheated years ago. Maybe his mother hated me. Maybe there was hidden debt or some ugly truth buried inside their perfect suburban life. That's what people usually confess at weddings, not what she said next. Chloe leaned closer, her sweet perfume almost suffocating me, and whispered the sentence that changed my entire life forever. "Liam doesn't love you. He loves what you do for him. He's done this before." 3 times. I laughed in her face because it sounded insane. Liam was only 32 years old. 3 marriages? Impossible. But Chloe slowly pulled out her phone and showed me the photos. 3 different women. 3 different weddings. 3 white dresses. 3 identical smiles. Then the divorce papers. Same lawyer. Same agreement. Same ending. Every woman left with nothing. No support. No property. No money, no fight. My stomach twisted so violently, I thought I might collapse right there in the hallway because I had signed the exact same agreement only days earlier, voluntarily, happily, for love. Liam told me his startup company was still growing, that most of his money was tied up in investments and stocks, that one day we would build a huge life together once his business exploded, and I believed every single word he said. Now I stood in the bathroom staring at my reflection. The woman in the mirror looked like a bride, but she felt like a victim. My name is Mia Brooks. At the time, I was 28 years old and working as a freelance graphic designer. I wasn't rich. I wasn't famous. I came from an ordinary family. My mother raised me alone after my father disappeared when I was 6 years old. She worked double shifts as a nurse, just to keep food on the table and help me attend art school. Growing up, I promised myself one thing. I would never become dependent on anyone. Never weak. Never trapped. Then I met Liam. We met in a bookstore. He was reading poetry while I flipped through a typography book. He smiled at me and said I looked dangerously focused. It was cheesy, stupid, and somehow charming at the same time. We got coffee together that afternoon, then dinner a few days later, then long midnight walks where he remembered every tiny detail I ever mentioned. My favorite tea, my mother's birthday, the fact that I hated thunderstorms but loved sleeping during rain. No one had ever paid attention to me like that before. 3 months later, he proposed with a painting he made of the 2 of us sitting inside that bookstore. It was cheesy and beautiful and perfect, and I said yes because I thought I had finally found someone who truly saw me. Now I understood the truth. He never saw me. He only saw what I could become for him. Part 2. Chloe explained everything that night. Liam had a pattern. He targeted women who looked strong on the outside but carried emotional wounds underneath. Women craving safety, love, validation, stability. He gave them exactly what they needed long enough to make them trust him completely. Then came the marriage, then emotional distance, then criticism, then manipulation, then coldness, and eventually divorce. By the end, every woman felt so exhausted, isolated, and emotionally broken that they walked away without fighting back. Most blamed themselves. None realized they had been carefully studied from the beginning. I refused to become wife number 4. But I didn't scream. I didn't throw my ring at him. I didn't run out of the hotel crying. Instead, I smiled. I splashed cold water over my face, fixed my makeup, and calmly walked back into the bedroom. Liam was lying against the headboard with his shirt half open, looking relaxed and handsome like a luxury cologne advertisement. "You okay, sweetheart?" he asked softly. I sat beside him and brushed my fingers through his hair. "Perfect," I said. "I'm just so happy I could cry." He pulled me close, and as I rested against his chest, listening to his heartbeat, one thought echoed inside my head. Enjoy this moment because it's the last warm one we'll ever have. The next morning, I became the perfect wife. I cooked his favorite breakfasts, laughed at his jokes, kissed him goodbye before work, and acted completely normal. But every night after he fell asleep, I investigated him. Slowly, carefully, methodically. I searched his office, his laptop, his drawers, his email accounts. I photographed bank statements, hidden transactions, legal documents, private messages, and fake business records. Then one night, I found something that made my skin crawl. A spreadsheet. A list where Liam had rated all of his wives. Categories included cooking skills, emotional stability, social usefulness, entertainment value, and sexual compatibility. I was listed as an 8.4. One ex-wife had scored a 6.2. Another was labeled emotionally expensive. I sat there in the darkness staring at the screen while my entire body shook. Because suddenly I realized something horrifying. This man didn't just manipulate women. He studied them like products, like investments, like livestock. Slowly, I started seeing every piece of my life differently. Liam encouraged me to work less because he wanted to take care of us. I lost 2 major clients because I stopped prioritizing my business. He constantly complained that my mother was too negative, so I visited her less and less. He isolated me so gradually that I never noticed it happening. That's the terrifying thing about manipulation. It rarely arrives like a hurricane. Usually it arrives like fog. Quiet, slow, easy to ignore until you can no longer see your own life clearly. The anger inside me didn't explode all at once. It grew slowly in the darkness. Eventually, I made a decision. I wasn't going to leave immediately. I was going to beat Liam at his own game. I secretly contacted his ex-wives. 2 replied immediately. The third answered a week later from Spain. We arranged a video call and every single story matched. Same charm, same promises, same manipulation, same financial traps. Then we discovered something even worse. Liam had secretly opened loans and credit lines, connected to the women's names, during the marriages. Small amounts spread across multiple accounts, enough to avoid suspicion. Together, the debt totaled nearly $80,000. One woman lost her apartment. Another moved back in with her parents. The woman in Spain signed paperwork for what Liam claimed was a business investment. But the business never existed. That's when this stopped being revenge. It became justice. For 3 months, I lived a double life. During the day, I played the loving wife. At night, I built a case against him piece by piece. I reopened freelance projects under my maiden name. I created a private bank account. I copied evidence of forged signatures, manipulated messages, hidden transactions, and financial fraud. Eventually, I hired a lawyer who specialized in emotional abuse and financial manipulation, and together we prepared to destroy him. The lawsuit wasn't for divorce. It was for fraud. I'll never forget the night he was served. Tuesday evening. Salmon, rice, wine on the table. Liam was talking about a promotion he claimed was coming soon when the doorbell rang. A delivery man handed him a thick blue envelope. Liam opened it casually. At first he looked confused, then irritated, then pale. Cold pale. "What is this?" he asked quietly, his hand trembling slightly. I took a sip of water. "That," I said calmly, "is the bill for 3 ruined lives. And the one you almost ruined next." He laughed, but it wasn't his usual confident laugh. This one sounded hollow and forced. "You're insane," he said. "None of this will hold up in court." "Maybe not," I replied calmly. "But the media will love it." His expression changed. Instantly when I mentioned the article already, drafted by a journalist friend of mine. The Serial Husband of Westfield County, featuring all 4 brides and his disgusting rating spreadsheet. For the first time since I met him, Liam looked genuinely afraid. "You wouldn't dare," he whispered. "I would do whatever's necessary," I interrupted. "Just like you did. The difference is, I'm on the right side." The legal battle lasted months. At first, Liam offered me money, then more money, then enough to cover every debt plus damages. I rejected every offer until finally I gave him my conditions. A public written confession, financial repayment to every woman, and mandatory psychological treatment. That was the price. Accountability. The court hearing took place on a cold gray morning in November. Liam arrived wearing a perfectly tailored black suit, looking polished and confident like the successful businessman everyone admired. His lawyer was aggressive and expensive. Mine was better. The courtroom was packed. Sitting quietly in the back row was Chloe, crying silently, not because her brother was suffering, but because someone had finally stopped him. Liam lied under oath, of course he did. He claimed he loved me, claimed the women were unstable, claimed they misunderstood financial agreements, claimed he was the real victim. Then my attorney called the witnesses one by one. The first ex-wife trembled while speaking. The second cried halfway through her testimony. The third woman from Spain spoke so calmly it somehow hurt even more. Then it was my turn. I didn't make some dramatic speech. I simply handed the judge the spreadsheet with the ratings, categories, and Liam's own handwriting. The courtroom fell silent. The judge studied the documents for a long moment before finally speaking. "Mr. Carter," he said slowly, "what you have done here is not only legally deceptive, it is morally bankrupt." Liam was ordered to repay the debts, pay financial penalties, and placed under probation. But the most important ruling came last. The court declared our marriage legally invalid due to fraudulent intent. In other words, my marriage had been a scam from the beginning. And finally it was over. After the hearing, I sat outside the courthouse while light rain fell across the city. Chloe sat beside me quietly and rested her head against my shoulder. "You did what I never had the courage to do," she whispered. "You said no." And suddenly I thought about my mother, her exhausted eyes after double shifts, her tired hands the day she once told me, "Never let someone convince you that you deserve less than respect." I almost forgot that lesson. Almost. 3 weeks later, Liam tried calling me. I ignored it. Then he texted, "Can we talk?" I've changed. I never answered. Not because I hated him, but because I finally understood that people like Liam don't truly change. They just improve their performance. A year later, I moved into a small apartment outside the city. I rebuilt my design business, visited my mother every weekend, and eventually adopted an old 3-legged dog named Kex from a shelter. He wasn't perfect, and neither was I, but for the first time in years, my life was real. And maybe that's the point of this story. Not revenge, not heartbreak, not even justice. It's this. Love should never require blindness. Perfection is often a costume, and sometimes the quietest warnings, like a frightened sister whispering in a wedding hallway, can save your entire life. So if this story hit you emotionally, tell me something in the comments. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed? Was it loud? Or was it quietly rebuilding your life? While the person who hurt you watched you become stronger without them? And if you enjoy stories about survival, betrayal, manipulation, and people fighting their way back from heartbreak, subscribe to the channel for more. Because sometimes the happiest ending isn't finding perfect love. Sometimes it's escaping the wrong person before they destroy you. Until next time, take care of yourself and never trust a smile alone. Always watch the hands creating it.